Okay, let's take a look at what we did today, slash yesterday, depending on when you're viewing this video. Okay, so we were sampling some things to try to see if Beyonce wrote the lyrics Crazy in Love, and we ended with doing a slightly larger sample size. So let's go ahead and kind of review that. So initially we had a sample size of 5, and this was our result, and then we got a sample size of 10, kind of where we ended things. So if we're looking at these, it does match some people's predictions of what they thought would happen with the sampling of 10 versus the sampling of 5. What we also noticed, Grace here pointed out, it's not spread out too much, which is nice. Like this is a little more variable with the five word sample versus the 10. They are fairly different. Aiden's prediction, it was fairly different, but there's an easily distinguishable pattern in the sample size of 10 and somewhat less variability. We do have a small class, so that we got to take that into account. If we had a little more data, we would probably get this to be even less variable if we had more people doing this, or if I made you guys do it a few times. So Kai thought it wasn't as spread out, which was good. In Saul's case, what we want to notice though is he's noticing the prediction had data that was more spread out. But this is closer to the blue line. So what we want to start narrowing or zoning in on is being close to the blue line, which is the true mean or average length of all of the words in the song. So basically we want to check and see when we sampled things, did we make it? So in this case, I am getting more of my samples to line up with where they should be or reflect the true average word length, which is 3.53, whereas the sample of 5 doesn't do that as much. It is generally still centered around here almost, but it's shifted up slightly, kind of where the majority of those points are. So this is a bit more symmetric down here, which gives us a slightly better prediction. So what can we say? Well, most of you said she wrote Crazy in Love. So if we look at what we know about Beyonce, the true word length is 3.53 of the song, and a lot of our samples are also matching that. And we do know that she wrote Destiny's Child, which had a very similar average word length. So what we would want to say is, since our samples generally reflect or get pretty close to the true mean length of 3.53, which is very close to 3.64, we can definitely say that Beyonce probably wrote the lyrics to Crazy in Love. So because those match pretty well. Now in stats, they're not exact. 3.53 and 3.64 aren't exact matches, but for statistical purposes, those are close enough. So let's take a peek at what we were supposed to find out here. Basically, we reviewed a lot of concepts. These are all the questions here. So what I would suggest is writing these on your own paper, perhaps, so you can keep them safe. So we did some sampling, and we had 3 different methods. And these are just, I made up some data here. I didn't screenshot our original on my key because I made it ahead of time. But basically, we have a few things going on. We usually collect a sample, and our notation for that is X with a bar on top. And then our population has a slightly different sample, which is this curly little U thing called mu. And then what we're hoping happens is our samples match the population measurement. So we're hoping whatever we sampled was good enough to sort of reflect that. So we can use a sample to make a prediction instead of having to take everybody out of the population and ask them questions or sample things from the whole population. It's a little quicker to sample. You just have to sample well. So the first 2 samples we did are what we call a convenience sample. They're easy, but they're a little biased. So we talked about when you're just looking at words, obviously you're going to go towards the bigger or smaller words, or you're going to zone in on words that are kind of the same length perhaps, but not representative of all the words in the sample. So these 2 are generally biased, meaning it's shifted over from where it should be, and in some cases have high variability. So when we were estimating the word length, everybody's estimating different, so that's going to be pretty variable. And then what we are shooting for is the last one, which is a random sample, which is generally unbiased and centered where we think it should be. So we're shooting for low bias and variability, and we're shooting for the population and the sample to kind of reflect each other. So we want to make sure everything in the sample is reflecting what it should for the population. So in this case, short words, long words, and everything in kind of in between.